Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. Now, Wailord, for those of you who do not know, is actually one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. It's in the top 10, which is great because, we rarely do actually see Wailord cards that can be used in standard, at least as main attackers and not, some kind of control piece. So it is, really satisfying to see an attacking Wailord deck, and a fun rogue deck at that with Baxcalibur. But I also want to stress that I don't think this deck is particularly great, to be honest. Just from my personal experience so far, it does feel a wee bit too clunky, and I worry that there's just been too many games where the deck kind of clunks up a bit and you can't really chain Wailords successfully. Like, the first Wailord isn't too much of a problem, but it's like if that opening hand consists of things like Regigigas, Varoom, a couple of Nest Balls maybe, and nothing else, then I do think this deck really does struggle to get into the game. And even though Hydro Pump is a really cool attack, right? 10 damage base, 50 more for every water energy you stack on Whale. So 4 energy just means you'll be doing 210, which isn't that impressive. But of course, if you stack a few more, then you can get these big 1-hit KOs. But the thing is, it's so many energy just to get a KO on, the majority of 2-price Pokemon. And if you're against, these big stage 2 EXs like Dragapult, for example, they have 320, 330 HP. It can be quite difficult, I think, to keep up. So that's kind of like one of the mainer downsides of Wailord, I think, is like the damage is a bit mid, and on top of that, you're actually fairly fragile at 240, funny enough. But it's also just the fact that the decks can be a bit slow, I think, to get into the game. I've also got, of course, Regigigas in here, which is a great partner for Baxcalibur. Just allows you to get a 1-hit KO on any Terra Pokemon in the game, which is fantastic. And I've definitely seen like alternate variations of this list that play 2 copies. I personally swapped out a Gigas for a Budew, just because I quite like the option to have a pivot in the deck, as well as doing some item lock. Although, to be honest, it's not super necessary, because typically what you want to do with this deck is actually lead with something like a Wailmer, for example. Wailmer is actually a pretty good lead in this deck, because unlike most basics, I would say, Wailmer is fairly tanky at 130 HP. But what you typically want to do going second with this deck is not bother with Budew, but instead use something like an Arven for your TM evolution, and then that gets you, your Revavroom typically. You typically want like Revavroom, right? Just to get some draw power established, as well as an Arctibax, so you can then easily transition into Baxcalibur next turn and not worry about, finding one of your 2 copies of Rare Candies. So that's one of the main benefits of using TM evolution. But it also means you can play Arven and find Precious Trolley and get the board set up, because, of course, you can't Poffin for Wailmer because he's a big whale. Like 130 HP is a lot for an evolving basic in this day and age. So yeah, so you do have to kind of rely on Precious Trolley. If you don't use Precious Trolley, then, well, to be honest, I don't think the Gust options for this deck are that impressive. So I guess like maybe, you could play Prime Catcher. I mean, this list isn't even playing Boss, what am I saying? But like at the same time, you could run like Counter Catcher, I guess, if you want. Like Artazon, for example, like not super useful, not hard to use this, mainly just because it helps your opponent. So if you get a lead, then you don't want to help them. But you could swap Artazon out for like a Counter Catcher or a Boss or something. But typically, you just can't afford a Gust. Like 4 copies of Superior Energy Retrieval. Funny enough, a card I don't see that often in games. It just doesn't seem to pop up much unless I Arven for it. But yeah, just a great way of getting energy back from the discard pile. Speaking of energy, we play 8 basic waters and 2 reversal, because typically you will tragically lose your first Wailmer. Your first whale goes down, a noble sacrifice for sure. But yeah, you will lose your first Pokemon typically very quickly. So you'll be able to activate reversal and basically just get an extra 150 damage is what I meant to say there. So yeah, it's a pretty cool card, but of course it's not active the whole game. And really, that's kind of it for thoughts on Wailord. It's a lot of fun, but in true typical rogue/budget fashion, I guess, it can be a very inconsistent, slow to get going deck, even with Precious Trolley and Team Evolution. There's just been a few games where the hands have been less than desirable and the damage has just been like, oof, It doesn't leave me very optimistic about things like Cradley, which I was hoping to take a look at in the near future. Wow, it's a blurry image. Okay, there we go. There's a few fossil decks I was hoping to make before Destined Rivals comes out, but honestly, Wailord has kind of like shaken my faith in these sorts of decks, because, if I can't get Wailord to win games consistently, then what am I going to do with Cradley? That's a clunkier fossil doing even less damage. So yeah, and also I just kind of gave up on a Lowland Dugtrio, sadly. Like, Treat You is just a really fun attack, but only doing 120 is so bad. So yeah, it's a bit rough. But yeah, hopefully I'll get back in the kitchen soon and start cooking up some more fun decks. But as it stands, I'm happy Wailord at least has a decent rogue budget deck, call it what you will, sort of concoction. But at the end of the day, it is a little bit too clunky for my liking, and I can't see myself enjoying too many more games with Wailord, sadly. I'm going to have to run back to Festival Lead. But yeah, it's been Ember Power. Let me know what you think down below. Will you be trying out Wailord? And yeah, thank you for watching. Okay, so we do actually need quite a bit here to pull this off. I'm saying that, and we need like, well, we need a Wailord. Yeah, we need a Wailord, a Bax. So like Rare Candy Baxcalibur, I guess, but seems a wee bit far-fetched considering we don't have much to work with. I suppose I could go ahead and get Fezandipiti though. Draw 3 cards to start with. Maybe we'll get a bit lucky off this one. Pheasant hasn't like been super successful in games so far, but we'll see here. Flip the script. And that's a bit unfortunate. So we're a little bit short. Okay. I think I'll just, yeah, I'm just going to play it safe. I'll evolve here. I will attach an energy. And then I'm just going to go ahead and use Iono. I suppose that locks us out of the Rare Candy play, but I really don't think I'm going to get it this turn anyway, so... yeah, that seems fine, actually. Nest Ball for another Wailmer. And then we'll bench Varoom. The Gigas is also pretty good here, but I think we can wait just a little bit. Then I will Team Evo. And I will get Revavroom and... yeah, I guess Revavroom and Baxcalibur. And then that sets us up pretty nicely for next turn. We can use Revavroom's ability. We also have Arven to work with. And I'm fully expecting my opponent to KO Wailmer over here, so that's not like too much of an issue. So yeah, we just end turn actually. Team Evolution discards itself. And then, yeah, my opponent will just KO Wailmer, hopefully. We'll be able to draw 3 with Fezzen. And hopefully try and KO Charizard, but I mean, that seems a bit unlikely. My opponent attaches a 3rd energy to Charmeleon, which is a bit excessive, to be honest, but we'll see what else they have. Multiple Charmanders, I guess. Okay, well that's different. You don't see that every day. So which one's this? Okay, the big one. Cool. So it's still quite hard for him to get a KO on us. In fact, how much damage does Baxcalibur do? 130. That's not actually enough. Like, yeah, even with weakness, that's not enough. So we have to do this with Wailord. I'll use Revavroom first, just because we might not be able to slim the hand after using Fezandipiti. Cool. I think we've got it off this, but I'll just use Fezzen anyway. Flip the script. And then we can start attaching some energy, I think. Okay, so Charizard's a pretty good one. I will then Ultra Ball away, I guess, Arven Ultra Ball. I will have to use an Arven, though, to get a Earthen Vessel. That's something to bear in mind here, actually. So yeah, we'll get Wailord out. And we are currently 2 energy short, so we will have to Vessel away either the Arven or the Gigas. Which is a bit of a shame, actually. That is a bit annoying. Although, if I get the other TM Evo, then it's not like that much of a that much of a loss, is it? Yeah, because I can just Earthen Vessel away the Evo. So I'll Vessel away TM Evolution. 4 energy on the whales. Only 2 energy in deck, which is a bit precarious. Do I have any special energy in deck? Yes, 2 reversal. I guess I should bench Gigas. Like, I probably should. Yeah, because I feel like he's going to respond with his own, like, Terra Charizard. So I'll bench Gigas. And then that way we can use, like, Superior Energy Retrieval next turn, if we really wanted to. Game's frozen. Game's not crashed. By some miracle. So we'll give Wailord all the energy. So did take quite a bit of effort to do this, but we do get the one shot at least. And if he responds with his KO, then at the very least we have access to reverse energy. So Hydro Pump for more than enough damage for sure. So skadoosh that thing away. That was a very weird effect. I'm not sure if it'll show up in the video or not. And then I guess just anything really off the prizes would be good. But some energy, I guess. 2 energy? Fingers crossed. I mean, Night Stretcher's alright. Means we can get Wailord going after they take another KO. Messagoza, I mean, that's pretty good for us. Means we can get like another Baxcalibur on the board. So they flip tails. Yeah, it's a bit risky. So that's why I don't play Messagoza a lot. It's a wee bit risky. Nest Ball for Pidgeot or Fezandipiti. Pidgey, yeah. Grabs their Pidgey. I think they had a Nest Ball in hand much earlier, but Iono did away. But yeah, the Nest Ball for Pidgey here. I mean, he could just use Blazing Destruction if he really has nothing else, but he kind of just needs a Rare Candy Charizard. We are still in a fairly precarious position because, like, even if I KO Charmander or go down to 3 prizes, he can just boss KO Fezzen for 2 more. And then at that point, we literally have to respond with 2 back-to-back knockouts, really. So, yeah, it's a wee bit awkward. Also, I'm not sure why the game keeps doing that. Like, it'll show your cards as being active, and then, you know, it'll flip into effect. So I would have loved a boss here, but without using like a Night Stretcher for energy and then maybe using Revavroom into one, that just seems like so much of a waste. So yeah, it's only a 2-card chance as well. You know what? I think I'm just going to keep going for it. Just keep using Hydro Pump for now. We don't need to press our advantage anyway. I feel like we're in a solid position. Yep, just the 1 prize card. My mistake. And it's an energy. Okay. Useful. Pretty useful. Probably just slap this immediately down on Gigas. And pretty much once this Pidgey's gone down, we can just use Gigas to hoover up, hopefully, after that. So they flip tails again. It's a bit rough. Definitely a bit rough for them. Okay, there's the Arven. But they do need stuff like Ultra Ball, so... I just feel like if they put Terra Charizard into EX into play now, then it's like... Yeah, it's kind of one of those situations where we can just respond in KO with Gigas, but I suppose Pidgeot's harder for us to deal with, I guess, because we're not hitting for weakness and we'd have to expend more energy. So yeah, there's TM Evo. But they do the call for family, which is, yeah, I guess that's fine. No Fezandipiti, though. A Growlithe, okay. Fair dues. Weakness to water, though. Yeah, this is the duality of TCG Live. It's just like, yeah, they conceded. It's just like 1 minute you'll be paired up against Dragapult Dusknoir, and then the next minute you'll be paired up against Charizard, the bad one, with Arcanine. You know, it's just like the duality of everything. But yeah, we'll try and record some more games, I guess.